And we are at the Catholic Leadership Conference in Birmingham, Alabama, where we're here with author William B. May to talk about some of his outreach and getting the marriage conversation right, a guide for effective dialogue. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, it's an honor to be with you, Doug.
William B. May. You've got a great name, and there's another famous May as well.
William E. May.
William E. May.
And when I go around the country speaking, a lot of people come because they're expecting the other one. So I tell him that I go around the country apologizing for not being him.
They're pleasantly surprised when they see it's you. I'm sure he's very proud of all the work you're doing because I know he's helped you.
He is a brilliant, brilliant man.
Well, let me ask you a question. There's a couple of things here. It's Catholics for the Common Good. Let's talk about what that is. Catholics for the Common Good was started up about 10 years ago, right?
Yes.
And what is its main mission?
It's an apostolate for evangelization of culture. It was inspired by St. John Paul II. Okay. And he really called for an evangelization of culture based on Catholic social teaching. Mm-hmm. And this last 10 years has been a process of discovery, you know, and working with brilliant theological and philosophical advisors, mm-hmm. and delving into the social doctrine and really taking a fresh look at a lot of the things that are affecting the culture. And over the years, we've gravitated into a focus exclusively on marriage and the family.
Why is that? It's because that's the central issue for our culture, from a Catholic perspective, in many ways.
Yes, it's a central issue, but at the same time, we found that we found a couple things. First, I recognized back in around 2006, 2007, that we were on a losing course on the marriage issue.
And when you say on a losing course in marriage, what are you referring to?
Well, I'm talking about redefinition of marriage, but also
who can get married, how that all works.
But more than that, the attack on marriage and the family, and the consequences of that, and understanding what marriage is. When I would testify in the California legislature, even legislators who were supporting marriage couldn't explain what it was.
Right.
And as Father Sweeney, you know, observed, marriage can't be defined. It's a divine institution. It's an integral part of God's plan for creation, and you can't define that any more than you can define what a human person is.
Well, let me ask
so
you,
it has to be described.
Because I think some of the times with people out there, when we talk about things, sanctity of marriage and these kinds of things like that, they'd say, "Well, I understand why you want to defend what you have. That sounds okay. But why do you think because we want to have gay marriage or some other form of marriage, that's an attack on your kind of marriage? Why is that an attack? Why should we see it as an attack?"
Well, first of all, what the proposal is to change the definition of marriage to enable same-sex couples to marry. Mm-hmm. So we shouldn't focus on the term gay marriage or same-sex marriage.
Right.
What happens in the law is they don't put anything like that in the law. They take out man and woman and they put in two people.
Right.
Now, when you have man and woman in there, you have a civil institution that is specifically geared for uniting kids with their moms and dads. Right. When you take that out, you don't have that in the law anymore. So there's only one definition of marriage that will be in the law, and the question is do we need a civil institution that's specifically geared for uniting kids with their moms and dads? Yes or no? Nobody's asked that question.
Well, history would tell us yes.
History would tell us yes, but we need to have a debate on that. Mm-hmm. Now, see, what's unique about us, turning to Scripture, Christ said, this is Luke 21, 10:21, Father, I give you praise. You've hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to the childlike. Who are the wise and learned? We're the wise and the learned. We have to become childlike to understand what marriage is. When we approach marriage from the standpoint of a child, marriage is something that can be experienced. And the language of the culture today is experience. People make decisions on what's good or bad or right or wrong based on their own experience.
How they feel about it.
How they feel about it.
Right.
And we need to connect those feelings so that they can discover the truth for themselves.
Well, why are we so disconnected then, do you think? What
Well,
is
the
it?
cultural influences. It's surprising. And when we did workshops and trainings, and which became focus groups that this booklet is based on, you have to remind people today that everybody has a mother and a father. They just assume, that mothers and fathers, are biological and they're not that significant.
Right. Well, isn't that the state imposition of trying to intercede in a sense between the family and the child, where it's the marital relation isn't required anymore because the state can raise the child, or we can have in vitro fertilization or some other thing.
Precisely.
And so all of those things can be done. So we don't need this anymore. This is an arcane structure that our sciences and futuristic view is eliminating.
So you just went to the heart of the matter.
Right.
And that's what we need to be talking about. And the only way to really talk about it is to look at it from the perspective of the child. Mm-hmm. Marriage is well, first of all, church teaching is very clear on this. And Centesimus Annus by St. John Paul II, and also more clearly in Donum Vitae, the church teaches it's a right for the child to be born into a family with mom and dad connected in marriage, because it's through that relationship the child can discover, his or her own identity, who we are. Right. We all have that desire to know and to be connected, and where do I get my eye color from, or who do I look like?
But in these days, you say that, and the first reaction is for all the people who didn't have that happen or whatever to take offense and get upset and say that somehow you're putting down how I was raised, or my mother, or whatever the situation, the socioeconomic dynamics of our particular cultural element that affected us, because you're a nice guy and you were lucky you had these wealthy parents who took care of you, and a lot of people don't have that.
You see, that's the thing. Now, the way a lot of people talk about this now is kids do better with a mother and father. They don't even say their mother and father, a mother and father. And really what we're doing is we're blaming people, and one group of people do better parenting than other. But when you think about it, outcomes and competency in parenting has nothing to do with marriage. Mm-hmm. Blessed St. John Paul II talks about marriage as a communion of persons, a communion of man and woman leading to a communion between parent and child, and there is no communion that's closer than the communion between mother and child in the womb.
But that requires the ultimate commitment in an environment and a culture that doesn't want commitment.
Well, actually, the focus needs to be on recognizing the right of the child. Now I'm going to.
I see. Okay.
Going to Pacem in Terris, Saint John the 23rd. The child has a right to be born.
Another recent saint, right?
Yes, the child has a right to be born into a family with mom and dad united in marriage, and therefore we have a duty to promote men and women marrying before having children. You can't force it. See, marriage is a fact that can only be recognized, and it's most importantly recognized by the man and woman who choose to enter into it. And so we need to be thinking about what are the things that influences young people today about understanding the importance of marrying before having children, having marriage as the foundation of their family. And you have all these cultural cross currents that people forget that moms and dads are even important. Mm-hmm. So we've got to focus on a goal, really evaluating every law, every curriculum, every institution by how well it supports and promotes men and women marrying before having children. And that's right out of the catechism.
Right.
On the part of the catechism.
Well, but then society says that's a religious conviction, and I'm very happy you as a Catholic believe that. I'm not Catholic. Why are you imposing that vision on all of society?
Well, you don't impose it. You raise the question to reveal truth.
Okay.
And the question is, do children have a right to know their moms and dads? Do we need an institution that's geared for uniting kids with their moms and dads, yes or no? Mm-hmm. Does anybody have the right to create a child with the intention of depriving them of knowing their moms and dads? See, when we ask these questions, that appeals to the child within us all, because we all have that desire for connection. I was standing outside of Judge Walker's courtroom in San Francisco during the Prop 8 trial, and the ABC legal analyst was out there. I was talking to him about this, and I said, we all have a desire for connection with our mom and dad. That's why marriage is important. It's important to promote men and women marrying before having children. And he was stunned, and he paused and he said, well, that's certainly true for me, but I can't say that's true for anyone else. But the important thing is, when we say this, people know it's true for them. You know, so really this has nothing to do with same-sex marriage, has nothing to do with the aspirations of same-sex couples. We can say we understand your desires to have your relationships recognized. We understand this, but in order to do that, it requires redefining marriage in a way that eliminates the only institution that unites kids with their moms and dads. How can you justify doing that? So really, we
And
have
what do they say?
They say, well, we don't want to change marriage, we just want to participate in it.
Right.
I said, well, that's very nice, but you can't participate in it unless you change it to eliminate the only institution that unites kids with their moms and dads. They don't have an answer for that. But we need to keep asking that over and over again and reframe the debate. Now, one of the things that I cover in the book is we need to educate people on the consequences of the breakdown of marriage today. Do you realize that with women under 30, half of the kids born to them are outside of marriage?
Yeah.
And you know, the breakdown of marriage and single parenthood has moved into the middle class now. Young people aren't getting married. This is a big crisis. Right. And every family is at risk.
And that's based many times out of their own personal experience of what they might have grown up with in their own situation with marriages falling apart and things like that.
Not necessarily. I've had good Catholic parents that have even homeschooled their kids.
Right.
And they get out in the world and they ask questions like, Mom, why do I need to get married? I don't need to be married to have children.
Right.
And they say to me, where did we go wrong?
Well, that's where you also got to make sure in situation that in providing the educational experience to your children, that you also make sure they're aware that there are other opinions in the world that they're going to come face to face with besides the ones that they hear at home, and they've got to be prepared to take on those things too.
That's true, but catechesis isn't enough. They need to be able to verify that this is true and to be able to express it in non-religious language to their friends. Otherwise, they're vulnerable to hearing proposals that sound reasonable that they have no response to.
Right, no, I understand. And you say, well, even the question you have here is kind of questioning you. When you say the only public interest in marriage is that the only institution unites children with their moms and dads, does it not ignore many other benefits of marriage?
Well, it's, you know, like what, for example? I mean,
well, there's many benefits of marriage, unified families, etc. So what if people, you know, man and woman loving each other and going into relationship? Is children the other? Well, should people get married who can't have children?
Yes, that establishes a norm, and the marital act is still a procreative act. It's not based on the fruitfulness of the act, but it also establishes the norm. But really, part of marriage is being open to life.
Right.
And but we, you know, there's no interest really in having an institution for emotional relationships between adults. What interest does the state have in that? And you know, that's, you know, if once marriage is redefined, there isn't any interest. I mean, you know, see what's happening is marriage unites a man and a woman with each other and any children born from the union. It's important to memorize that. The bishops are starting to use that expression.
And that's why you were involved with creating a couple of the pamphlets,
yes,
right? Reframing the marriage issue reveals reality
right,
series.
We're suggesting to people
to
contact us and distribute these with their pastors.
Because you want people to have the right answers.
It's an education. It's an education process on what marriage is. So marriage is. Marriage unites a man and woman with each other and any children born from the union. It's a reality. It's a fact.
Right.
It's a fact that can only be recognized and can't be changed.
Right.
And you know, we try to explain what marriage is by talking about procreation, complementarity, all that. That's all expressed in that phrase. It expresses procreation. It expresses complementarity. It expresses motherhood and fatherhood, and irreplaceability that people don't associate with marriage anymore, and even the potential for infertility, the heartbreak of infertility.
Now, this is one of the things you hear a lot these days, because as we see things going the way they've been going in different states and situations, it seems like there's a certain tipping point that has been reached, unfortunately, in many ways, where people start to feel as if this is an inevitability that we're rolling into. So people say, why not create, and this is in your book, why not create two distinct kinds of marriages in the law? Civil marriage regulated by the state and religious marriage regulated by the religious or the church. Why don't we just do that?
Right. We've got, you're referring to, we've got 41 questions
Yeah, I'm
and
just using the
answers in
questions
there.
and the answers there. Right?
You see, if you're looking at this as the only civil institution that unites kids with their moms and dads, it's a matter of social justice to have that recognized by the state because of the right of the child to be born into a family with mom and dad united in marriage. So really, this is, in that respect, it's like a pro-life issue.
Right.
Just because they've changed the law so it's legal to end the life of the child in the womb doesn't mean we just say, well, that's okay for the secular society, but Catholics won't do that. No. The breakdown of marriage is the root cause of poverty. Fatherlessness has very, very serious human consequences, and it's growing more and more. You talk to people in prison ministries, the people that they're dealing with are all from fatherless homes. You talk to people in pregnancy centers, most of the women in crisis pregnancies are from fatherless homes. This is a serious problem, and marriage reduces the chance that a child will live in poverty by 80%.
Let me ask you, in your perspective, in dealing with this over the last 10 years and looking at this, and we've both been around for a while, we've been through the 60s and things like that, and seen the culture change and things. What is it that changed in society, in your mind, that brought about this breakdown in the family where, to some degree, the father wasn't important anymore as part of the family unit? And isn't that part of the reason why, I mean, contraception allows us to have these situations where men don't have to feel responsible. And clearly, and abortion does too, because it allows them to say, well, it's not my problem. Right. And the other thing is, if you're in a situation where, in an attempt to help people in many cases, the state steps in, and the reality is the man becomes not as important to that equation, at least on the surface. And in some cases even has a relationship where getting married is detrimental to the financial health of the family or the couple.
Yes, you just answered the question by the, setting it up, and that's exactly it. And this has been happening for a long, long time. Contraception certainly is one of the causes. You hear absurd things that separated sex from procreation, and therefore from marriage. You hear crazy things today, like men saying, well, just because she chose to be a mother doesn't mean I chose to be a father. Right, okay. So parenting is becoming a lifestyle choice. Right. But in reality, at the moment of conception, the woman is a mother and the man is a father. That's reality. So we have to peel away the influence of the cultures on ourselves. Children know reality. You try to explain abortion to a child, it's the most absurd thing that they've ever heard in their life. It makes no sense at all. Right. Children know reality, and my experience is they want to talk about it. Now, we're not talking about, who does a better job of parenting. Anybody who's parenting has a tough job. They love their children, their children love them. Right, and certainly the idea you would think. So we're talking about the future, not judging anybody or anything of that sort, but everybody, people know the truth. They know when mom's missing.
And I don't understand why we live in a society today where, in many other cases, one could say that, let's say, and I always think of the health kick because that's such a big deal today. That somebody can go out and run a marathon and do this and shoot to excel to be in top physical condition. Nobody complains about that person talking about that because it makes me feel bad or because I'm not as good a runner as that person. Instead, the impression is you should be aspiring to that as well. But when it comes to the social things, it's totally the opposite.
Part of it is there are controversial issues that we don't know how to talk about. And God bless Pope Francis in Evangelii Gaudium. There's a part of it that we should all, there's a section of it, and he talks about realities are greater than ideas. A lot of times we talk about ideas and we try to have a dialogue which leads to conflict. And really, if we can ground our conversations in indisputable realities, they unite us.
But you've said that, and I agree with you, and I think scientifically you can look at the statistics and see what it is. I mean, clearly you can see the downside of the behaviors and things, and Paul VI nailed it. He was 100% right. Humanae Vitae laid it all out. He was the prophet. You look at what he said, it all came out to be true, worse than he probably even predicted in some ways. But it's like, even though the facts are there, They don't want to look at them. We just ignore them
Yes.
or act like they don't matter or whatever. They just
See, we have to talk in a personal way. For example, this student called me and from a high-end prep school. She had to write a paper defending marriage. She didn't know how to do it. Nobody agreed. Her parents didn't even agree on marriage. And I said, are your parents married? She said, yes. I said, here's what marriage is. Marriage is when a man and a woman freely choose to make themselves irreplaceable to each other. Mm-hmm. Until then, anybody's replaceable, but they choose to make themselves irreplaceable. That's what prepared them to receive you as a gift, a person of equal value and dignity. Because in reality, you're irreplaceable to both of them, and both of them are irreplaceable to you. It was their choice of marrying that started the circle of irreplaceability that we call the family. She said, wow, is that what marriage is? That's beautiful. She said, I never thought of that about marriage. I said, are you glad your mom and dad married? She said, yes.
Yeah,
Is that what you want for your children? Yes. That's what I want. See, God's plan for creation is beautiful. But if we can connect it with the desires of our heart that God stamped in our nature, people can see the beauty.
Well,
and that's really part of the
it's interesting too, because of what you're saying and doing that in a sense of, here we are, they say that about separation between parents, but yet they don't promote adoption. Nobody promotes adoption as being a way of saying, if this child isn't wanted, there's wonderful people who are happy to take care of your child and love them and become their parents going forward. And the other thing is just the idea that, you know, children don't have a particular value on one level. They can be aborted. On the other level, they could sue their parents over anything today,
I know, it's good
as if they're autonomous creatures. And the parent really isn't in charge of the child anymore, and the family unit is no longer the way a family unit was seen in the past.
Yes, that's true. But when's the last time you heard adoption promoted in the parish?
I agree.
I mean, we should be promoting men and women who have first made themselves irreplaceable to each other through marriage, to consider adopting as a matter of charity, to bring that child who's lost their mom and dad into that circle of their circle of irreplaceability.
In some ways, kind of like almost the ridiculousness. It's wonderful that so many Americans are out going around the world adopting children from other countries because maybe they wouldn't be adopted. So I don't want to take them. But they're out going around the world to adopt children when we're aborting babies left and right in the United States.
Yes.
And then somebody goes and says, well, they wouldn't have somebody to take care of them. And that's just a lie.
It is a lie.
That's what it all. It's all a big lie.
And you know, a lot of people, you know, nobody gets up in the morning saying, I want to do bad today. There's a lot of confusion in the world, and we have to approach people with love, with charity, with mercy, understanding, and phrase questions that help them discover the truth.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, William B. May.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your fine work and for reaching out in an area that needs to be reached out and spoken about in a nice, rational way, and giving us the words that we need to have, because it's tough out there for people to explain. They know in their heart, but they don't always know how to say it.
Exactly.
And I'm Doug Heck. This is EWTN's Bookmark on location at the Catholic Leadership Conference. Join us next time. Thanks.